like, if I'm able with that, and like, I think if I'm able with the help of other people to do a good job on that, it would be a really good introduction. And like, I know personally, just from like figuring out all the stuff I've figured out to write my paper, like from all the research, it made me care about like disability in general a lot more. So I think if I could do a good job on that, I would like help from anyone who offers like any ideas. Basically any history or discrimination would be helpful to me, and I could put it in. That I think that would be a really good place to start, and it would get people to care more. So.
Yeah, I really like that idea of like where we can do something broad like eugenics, and like we can talk about like Hitler. But I also think that we should if we could try and like space yours out, and like and we can kind of like leave the end part of the ADA till the end, so that it can kind of come full circle. So like we introduce the idea of like eugenics in like general, like and then we can tie in like the Jewish history and like Hitler and to kind of explain what eugenics is, and then we talk about disability, and then that's where we like launch into Fernald and like what Fernald was doing, and then we kind of like talk about like the bad stuff, and then we can bring the ADA back in the end. And then that way it can kind of have like it have an arc, and that like this like this like broad history can kind of be like the template for everyone else's sort of thing.
And I know the other
Can y'all
class
just
was
summarize
really,
what it said so I can put it up?
Yeah. So basically, my thing would be like a history of how we went from discrimination to welcoming and providing or giving people rights, and like how that happened, and like what it looked like.
so just quickly, the other class I know was really interested in having a sort of arc, so I feel like that would be really good for that. And I also think like, I think Jan kind of mentioned this, that like everybody knows about the Holocaust, so that's also a good
That's how I
way
start my
to,
thing. I'm like, everyone knows, everyone knows like that women were discriminated against. Everyone knows about the Holocaust. Everyone knows about like slavery.
I think that I really love the idea of like how did our country go from a country where like Hitler was literally taking advice and like using us as an inspiration to like where we are now.
Yeah.
And also I think we could, if we're putting the slide that we found at the Fernald School in the actual museum, then that can go at the beginning, and that can maybe be like the first, I don't know if this is just an idea, but it can be like the first thing we show, because that was actually like a part of, like, huge part of the eugenics movement was like taking pictures of people with disabilities like standing naked and like showing them at like the eugenics
Like the original
convention.
slide that we had.
Yeah, and so I think that could be like I don't know, we could make a bold statement about how this actually, like, this was part of the movement that inspired the Holocaust or something. It's like, what? That's great. Like,
And then we can like that can kind of be like the transition from like
yeah.
the like eugenics disability into
do we-
Fernald and
Yeah,
more
exactly.
of like the more like specific histories that we all
Do
have.
you think we should
Yeah.
keep this somewhat close to chronological?
I think that we
Yeah, I
could,
think so.
yeah,
I think
or
we
at
could,
Or, like,
because especially if like,
Thematic first and then chronological within the
yeah, I think
Yeah, for
definitely
sure.
if we're gonna like use ideas that coincide with one another, we should keep them together. And I think if we could try to make it as chronological as we can, like a timeline as the people go through the museum.
history from discrimination.
Mr. Cosby.
History from discrimination to giving people
That
rights.
sounds good.
Yeah.
Giving people rights.
Arrow, eugenics, disabilities, Fernald, slide. The slide.
Oh,
Yeah.
the slide picture.
Yeah.
Got it.
Or you started with Hitler.
Oh.
Actually, I started with the ugly laws.
Ugly laws.
But I feel like
Because that
I feel like the Holocaust might
Do you want to start taping things to the?
Well,
no.
the ugly laws, like so what I say is like, I say like, I give a, like, I think that's like an introduction. I was like, America has always like been discriminatory
Yeah.
towards people with disabilities, and then I say like, I give like a little bit about that, then I'm like, however, or not however, but just like the height of discrimination was in the 1900s with the eugenics.
got it. And
So I think
also-
that's
I
like a
think-
good
I
Actually,
place.
yeah, I think like we could start with a
Are you taking
statement.
notes of
Yeah, yeah.
ideas?
Like in the book that we read, it says something. There were some ridiculous things that you could get deported from the country. Like, if
So
you-
Like the guy
I
on the
put that
side.
right after
So
the
I feel like
Holocaust.
if we say
I put
like,
that right after eugenics. I say
Yeah.
like, this was not
Like,
the.
did
This is.
you
I
know
think
that
my.
you could get
This is
deported
literally
if
like
you
my
had blue eyes?
exact goal with my paper. Like
Yeah.
what we're talking about now. Like we're literally just talking
About
about ways to
papers.
improve my paper. Yeah. But so like I next after that I said like
So would you want to start with the ugly laws?
So what I did was I started with the ugly laws, and then I did eugenics, and then I said like America had other ways of like
Did we
preventing
get anywhere?
the
I think mine
unfit.
should be next
for-
to Fernald.
What?
Who's winning?
Hold on, wait,
Yeah,
Shh,
wait,
guys. This has been a phenomenal conversation so far. Let's keep it. You're all listening to each other, we're relating back and forth. Yeah, things your thought. Go. Yeah.
Thank you. So I think that like those two go together, and like I think everyone can agree.
The ugly laws and the.
No, I think the Holocaust and the immigration things go together because
Yeah.
kind of my argument there was like that, like it's pretty obvious that like these people were discriminated against not because they would like make America a worse place, but because of their disabilities.
Yeah.
So like I think the Holocaust goes together with immigration because like we're not like killing them well we are still sterilizing, but we're not killing people with disabilities, but we are like forbidding them from coming into our country, which is like the same outcome, honestly.
Also,
It's like
I
the,
think even just making the connection of like literally Hitler was inspired by what we were doing.
Yeah,
It's
no,
like-
don't
It's
worry,
like
I talked
the
about that.
saying that we read, what was it?
Zach, you can
Kill the Indian, save the man. That
Yeah.
Trying to like
Say the man.
make the people the same
Yeah.
as
That was
everyone else.
Michelle and
is.
Zach's original.
Yeah, the Carlisle school.
Definitely.
I think that like Hitler should be the first thing that we can like start because then it can kind of be an
Yeah, I
analogy
agree.
for what we do here, and also the shock of it is kind of like it's very
Yeah.
intriguing
I
and it will
agree.
be like very engaging. So I think that if you could just like reorder yours a little bit, so
To
we could
what?
have, so that like you
Like,
said the
have
ugly
to-
laws are the first thing.
Hitler and
So if
eugenics is
you
the
just
first
like
thing,
put
and then-
Hitler and then we go into that, I think that way we can kind of have like the
What
shock
if-
that would like
Okay.
get people like really
What if-
interested.
Wait, also can we just like take a vote and say if we're gonna use what I'm doing as our beginning? Because like I just wanna.
Yeah.
it's okay.
I
Oh, yeah.
definitely
I thought we were voting.
Can
Yeah.
someone raise their hand who doesn't want to start with like
What
Hitler
y'all
and
say?
eugenics?
Like who's connected?
Like,
overall.
Maya, do you have a clarification question?
Guys, who doesn't like Hitler?
Just raise your hand. Say I have a clarification question. and then just-
Y'all, can you just like summarize?
hold on, you
What
should ask
exhibit is connected to the Holocaust? Are you saying what's gonna be there that's gonna be
It's not
So we're not.
one
Yeah,
specific.
do you mind if I
exhibit.
explain?
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Summarize what I'm doing.
So it's not that we're going to be talking about the Holocaust necessarily in depth, but I think we are thinking about starting with the fact that like the eugenics movement was really huge in America in the early 1900s, and that Hitler was inspired by what we were doing. Like we gave him the idea to like do certain things to try to kill the Jews.
No,
and stuff,
I
and
even
the-
read, and so me and Mr. Cad were talking about this when I met with him, and like, please, like, I would be really grateful if people could help me with this, but I read in an article that Hitler literally contacted California
Yeah.
to ask
Yeah.
them, so like, if anyone could, I've been looking for letters.
To ask them about you in
Oh,
the middle
what
of your
if we got an
thought. To ask them about what?
To ask them like, how can I,
If we got an
like,
object.
how can I bet, yeah, that would walk,
That would
that
be
would be
insane.
my,
That would be
that's
super-
exactly,
yeah,
so that's what
exactly.
my goal is
The
to.
point of why we want to do this is because everybody knows about the
Mr.
Holocaust.
Cotton, he was
Everybody
asking
knows
them,
what
like,
it is, and it's,
efficient
horrible,
ways
and
to
so if we
stick
start
to,
with that, I feel
like,
we feel
conduct
it'll,
genocide.
Really draw people in and have them be
Okay.
like, what?
So-
Like that's crazy. Because nobody, I didn't know about the eugenics movement in America until we did this. I don't think that's something.
No,
that
nobody
know
did, my
about.
mom
Yeah,
didn't know about it,
yeah,
like my
I think
family,
So
I
I think
asked them.
that would be
But
a
no one
good
knows about
a
it.
good way to draw.
Everyone understands
Hey
that.
guys, wait,
They don't
guys,
understand
you've been doing great at having one person at a time, and be aware also, it's just process of people who are trying to get in, who have not
Yeah.
gotten a chance, like, for example, Eli has been very patient, so, yeah. That's all,
Well, you
I'm
have-
shutting
I
up.
don't remember what.
But it's been a
Yeah.
great
Eli,
conversation.
I
So
think
is
you were
someone
asking
going
me
to
to
be
summarize,
writing, like,
right?
as
I
this
got-
introduction, like, to introduce the subject? Is someone going to be writing, like, an essay or making
I
an
did,
additional?
that's,
remember
that's what
what
my
Okay, that's what
exhibit
you're,
is.
so you're not doing the
No.
Supreme Court case anymore, you switched.
Wait, we, right now, before we make any of those decisions, all we should be doing is just plotting out exactly what you're doing. What is the story of the exhibit from beginning, middle, and end? You guys are working on the beginning part,
Yeah.
and then start working on, okay, what's going here? Why are we starting here? Exactly you've been saying, so make sure there's note takers on that. So you all have all of this written down clearly, because we're gonna have to give this to the other class so they can understand what our ideas are. Then we'll get to Maya, to your suggestions, who's gonna be working on what part of the exhibits. Great.
But also, this is what I changed my thing to, and if you guys, I don't know, if you guys want, I can like put my essay, or I can make it public if you wanna see like what I did or make comments on it, but, so,
I don't
it's,
understand
but,
Ugly
What?
Mouse,
Sorry, no, you can.
Hitler takes advice.
but, like here, like for example, this is a sentence from my,
immigration.
Eliana, like what you were saying, this is a sentence from my, this is how I started, I say like, as many people know, America has a history filled with tragic
Makes
events,
sense in my head.
and like most people are aware of like enslavement.
Do you know what time, what year this letter
Um,
was written?
I do agree
in the 90s.
with y'all. I think if we're gonna start the museum with something, we should definitely start it with something that I would say 99% of people know about, even if they don't have a lot of background information, such as the Holocaust, and then use that to connect to the rest of our museum as they go through. Then I think you want to.
No, I think it's all, no, you're right, start with what people know,
Yeah, start with what somebody.
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
that
So why don't we do
99%
Helen
knows.
Keller instead of such a depressive
No,
story?
see, I think that because.
How is Helen Keller any?
Whoa, guys,
Never
let's
mind.
keep the tone, keep the tone,
It's
Yeah.
still depressing.
keep the tone.
No,
Skylar,
she's a
why
poet.
do you think we should do Helen Keller?
Well, I mean, I think it's a good idea where
Yeah,
you're
but
coming
that's
from
two
with
disabilities.
starting with
Eli,
something
Eli.
everyone knows, but I feel like it's something that kind of brings the mood down to start with. But I feel like everyone or relatively knows who Helen Keller is or have heard of her. So like, and she's pretty inspiring of a story to have done what she has done with the disabilities that she had. So I feel like that's kind of an uplifting story rather than talking about the Holocaust right away and like talking about how they were brutalized and oppressed and murdered.
Oh wait, actually mine.
Zach.
Nervous?
Actually, yeah, Zach.
Okay, so, but like, I get that it is maybe like the Holocaust is kind of a sad note, but I feel like that's kind of the point. And no one's exhibits really connect that much to Helen Keller except for the Brailles, but everyone kind of connects to eugenics. And most importantly, is eugenics is not that like it's not really common knowledge, but the Holocaust
Not at all.
is. And like to use the Holocaust to help people understand the idea of eugenics and then understand how eugenics was applied to like people with disability in America would be a great way to segue into pretty much all of our other exhibits and like get people interested with something they have background knowledge with and explain this very like one sad and very confusing idea that is eugenics and like that was going on, and so we can and maybe like Helen Keller would be a happier like note, but like the story of like disability is kind of tragic and like although like but it doesn't really matter if it's like if the mood is like kind of like sad in the beginning because like towards the end it should be improving. Eliana, Colin.
Oh yeah.
And then not only that, but I would actually argue that that's what we want to convey because the whole point is that like the history of people with disabilities was like extremely tragic and sad and like when people think of the history of the Jews, they're like, oh my god, like the Holocaust, like it was awful, like and like it's a big deal and all that. When people think of the history of the disabilities, they're just like, okay, like it's not like what happened to them, like they have it harder sometimes. Like that's what most people would probably, or like something along those lines. But like if we show them, and like honestly, to be honest, like at the beginning of the year, I was kind of like, I don't really know why we're focusing on this. Like I don't know why this is such a big deal. But like after I figured out about all of this stuff, like and I was like, I'm not gonna care about this probably, is how I was honestly thinking. But when I figured out about like eugenics and that Hitler was taking advice from us and that like and all the awful stuff that's happened, and what's even worse is that nobody even knows about this stuff, so I think it actually is a huge issue because like you need to tell the story of history. I think that's really important. But so I think like for me, the reason I wanted to start with this is because for me that's what made me care about everything. And I could take any exhibit in this room or in the whole grade out of all of them and put it somewhere in my paper, whether it's an example of how we've changed today, whether it's an example of discrimination, whether it's an example of like the effects it's had. I could take any exhibit and put it in my paper and it would fit very well. I think that's why, and like what Zach was saying, I completely agree with, how about it's general and good. But yeah, so that's why I think it's a good place to start, and I think that like the more dramatic and hard like things we can show right away, that's how we can draw our readers in and get them interested, and I think it's a good thing actually.
Also, the quicker they understand eugenics, the quicker they can understand everything.
Marty,
Yeah.
do you want to say something?
Yeah, so I actually agree with Skylar that Helen Keller would be a better story to open with, because I understand that you guys are saying you want something to be really sad or dramatic, which I do think is important if there is another story about disability, but I just think the Holocaust just brings in a whole new subject about discrimination about religion, and I don't think eugenics is connected to most of these. Most of these are just about disabilities, like a leg brace or braille. Like, how does that have to do with eugenics? Like, it doesn't really. It's not getting rid of these people or like stuff like that. I just feel like if you're bringing in the Holocaust, it just brings in a whole new subject about religion, which is not touched on throughout the rest of our exhibit. So it would be kind of be misleading and just bringing in like additional information and subjects that aren't correlated to all the exhibits that were presented.
Yeah.
Feel free to interrupt me because I know we agree on this. I think that starting with the Holocaust, like Zach said, if you start with like one of the most important events in world history, arguably, you will draw the viewer in immediately, and they'll be able to. I guarantee you, if it took 10 people to go through the museum and you started with Helen Keller, that they would probably everybody would know who Helen Keller was. Everybody would know what the Holocaust was, but not many people would see the connection to the rest of our exhibits through Helen Keller, because she had 2 main disabilities, and we have a ton of other artifacts and objects and interviews not related to Helen Keller at all.
How are they related to eugenics?
It's
Okay,
not-
wait,
I can answer that.
Pause. So let me actually make just a process suggestion. Pick one and go with it. It's not going to necessarily have to be, you could get like through it and say, you know what, we actually aren't so happy with the one we started with, but what you need to do, and just as from a process, but you have 12 minutes to build out your exhibit, putting each of your exhibits in proper order. So I would just say, it doesn't even matter, just pick one. If you want me to pick for you, I'll just do it
Alright,
randomly.
Can I just clarify? Can I just clarify
Fine.
something?
Fine.
Because I think some people weren't in the room when I first said what my
But-
exhibit
So
was.
let me just, Jan, I think it's gonna be super important for you to remember what you're gonna say, but I would say that just for the purposes of getting this done, for the 10 minutes we have left, just let's pick one and then just build out from there.
Alright, E.G., do you wanna conduct a vote? Eliana,
Yes.
why don't you conduct a vote?
Oh, yeah.
Can I say one?
What?
No.
Let's just pick a vote, let's just pick a vote and then build out from there. Because I think everybody's And we can always rebuild, but we just need to have,
That would
we
be
just need
just
to
as
baseline.
It's New
Who
York.
wants to do the eugenics movement connected to the
Whatever
Holocaust?
Jan said, that's
Okay, so that's a majority, so we're gonna stick with that.
And again, we can always go back, but it's just for the purposes of starting, go.
By the way, for people researching the letter from Hitler, it's not
Yeah.
to California.
But
it was
I
to New
just
York.
found one.
It was to New York at the Museum
I
of.
found one from Minneapolis.
Really, I found
That's
one in the
awful.
museum. There's one in Los Angeles at the museum
Love
of
it,
Museum of
love it, send it to the group, send it to the group.
Guys,
Okay, so now
awesome.
we have to,
Send it to the group, let's go,
so,
Bill.
okay,
So we left off
does
like
anyone wanna
Fernald.
start, well, left at Fernald?
We could, well, let's look,
Is
like, that Hitler to
Can you
eugenics
text me
disability to Fernald.
letter?
So, alright, we're starting with the
Yeah.
history of discrimination. That's what we can call it. So now where do we go from there is the question.
Well, like history of like discrimination in terms of eugenics.
I mean, that's probably,
Eugenics in terms
So-
of
That's-
disability.
yeah, that's probably like the biggest part, eugenics, because like, that's the biggest part, cause like that's the most interesting part, and
Or
that's
like how
by
like,
far the most
how
discriminatory we've been.
eugenics influenced the Holocaust, and like what, or like, and then go into like eugenics like
Yeah.
in a broader sense, and then go back more specific to
But
eugenics and disability.
Also, I do wanna say, and this maybe will answer Maya's concern, but, so it's not that we're talking about the Holocaust, it's that we're using the Holocaust to show that
An
the
analogy.
eugenics movement was so big and so effective that even the Holocaust, which people already know about, like we don't need to do any more proving there, we're just using it to help prove the case that that how like significant the eugenics movement was. Because many people don't know about this, and if people don't know about it, we have to do as much as we can and tell them everything to show how significant and how big of a deal it was. So that's why, it's not that we're focusing on the Holocaust, it's that the Holocaust, and we're not using, it's just a very important point, and we're not comparing anything to the Holocaust. But we are saying like, yeah, you should care about this as much as the Holocaust or whatever, but it is really important to show the significance of eugenics.
Terrific, keep building.
Should we try to place objects?
Yep, that's what
Yeah,
you should
does
do.
does anyone wanna say what objects they think would fit in that, or like one or two objects you think would fit?
What goes next? You're telling a story.
I think once again with my IQ test, I think it could fit really well into any of them. But I think for history, like the history of it, like starting off, maybe put it there because the labeling is kind of where it all started. Like this is why it's like that's what oppressed all these like people like living with their disabilities. Like it's because of the labeling and the judgment, which pretty much developed from the IQ saying you're not smart enough, you're not good enough. So maybe like applying that to the fact that during the Holocaust they were saying these people should die because they're not good enough, because they're like this and like this. I think that we could correlate those together, so it could definitely fit somewhere at the beginning.
So get it up there, just see what it looks like, and just tape it up, and then we'll see who, I don't know whoever's ever got that, tape it up there.
Who has that sheet of paper?
Yeah, who was the IQ test? Do you wanna just take all of the things?
Yeah, why don't you take, yeah, Eli, you're up there, take them, and then tape it up there. Good, I'm glad you understand what the purpose of this.
What do you think about
Honestly, it's a work of art.
My favorite word.
Thank you, thank you.
Museum. Worthy.
Eli.
We can definitely talk about the lunatic asylum in there too, because we can talk about how eugenics they used to lock them up in there.
Oh, good, yeah.
Yeah, I know, I'm not done.
But if we can get a hold of this,
Yeah, look, at the very least, if we can't get a hold of it, yeah, that would be awesome if we could nail it. And sorry, a lot of these places will actually loan it, but even if not, we can still make a copy of it and put it on there.
Yeah, it's one of those, it's someone
See, that's what I wanna do, but
Yeah.
You know,
Put it out there.
we read about Fernald, something with like,
I think
oh,
probably
one of the
the
counselors or whatever, like throws urine on one of the kids, right?
Yeah, that's from
I'm sorry,
the
what?
school.
Yeah.
Alright, what's
Okay,
next?
yeah, who else?
I feel
What
like we
else?
should add in the letter about the lunatic asylum and after that, because that definitely
Yeah, I
has to do
agree.
with
I
eugenics,
think
about
the,
locking them up
yeah,
and
exactly. I
separating them
agree.
from
The Delaware
society.
one?
Yeah,
The lunatics, or like the, what was it called?
it's the
Asylum.
lunatic
Asylum.
asylum.
What are you saying for?
Should we
Yeah.
switch those because chronologically the insane court came first?
Well,
Well,
technically
or
it
just put it
didn't
in
because
the-
although the Stanford Binet IQ test was created in 1937, IQ tests were used in different forms to what's it called? Initiate them into the asylums.
We
I
can
guess
just put
like
them in any order
accept
now,
them
if that
in.
makes
They had to
sense.
take an IQ test. It wasn't the Stanford Binet exactly, but it was an IQ test.
Without like a place to put them, they didn't really need tests.
Anything else that you think fits the beginning?
I just wanted to say this is kind of unrelated, but I was just thinking like another parallel between the Holocaust and disability movement is that like the Fernald School was a lot like a concentration camp in a lot of ways. So I was just thinking, and I know,
Yeah, the labor.
yeah, like I said, that there's another parallel, and
Oh,
again,
also
like,
radioactive.
and again, like
Yeah.
we don't want to compare it to the Holocaust, but we can, we don't want to like measure them up against each other, but
You
like
can highlight the mistreatment.
showing parallels between the Holocaust, I think, is like a really good method. So yeah.
Gabe?
To add on to that kind of, I think, maybe even before those events, we should, and I don't know if this is kind of what Eli was getting at, because I can't think of memory at all. But the slide of the male
Yeah,
with
for sure.
Yeah.
kyphosis,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
I
who
don't know
has
what,
that one?
no one has
That's
that.
the other class.
I don't know what.
No,
I
it's
think
ours.
I think I just skipped it here.
It's our class.
Yeah, no, it's not
Gabe,
here.
I think I
They have that really old book.
Oh,
I
yeah.
definitely
Yeah, that's what I was
know
gonna say,
about
I don't know what's
Does it-
written in the book, but
it
that
was-
might be,
Here you go.
something that should be up there too.
I think the book was just a lesson plan, so I don't think that it
Yeah.
connects to eugenics.
But we don't even have that.
Yeah.
Is it just a lesson plan?
Yeah, it's just a lesson plan. It's like a daily schedule.
So you want
uh,
it. Yeah.
Here, I found something that talks about it.
About what?
About the letter that Hitler wrote.
Awesome. Send it to the
Where?
group.
It says Hitler even wrote a fan letter to American eugenic leader Madison Grant calling his race-based eugenics book The Passing of the Great Race his Bible.
If you can find the actual letter to get a hold of it.
Then
Yeah.
Sven actually just
So
emailed all of
Awesome.
us.
That's phenomenal. Keep going, guys. Keep going. Keep going. This is terrific. Keep going.
Alright,
Yeah,
what's
no.
next?
Because I don't have any ones that connect to eugenics, or like, do you have any ideas of how to transition from that to something in the middle? Like, what would you want the like structure to be for the middle of the exhibit?
Would you just say Ellis Island?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
That's in my thing though.
But I think that would be a better transition because that's, it doesn't have to.
I
Yeah,
think
and
that Ellis Island would be a good connection for
Okay,
sure.
yeah, guys, one at a time. Come on.
Island, but then-
Yeah,
And then Zach.
Ellis Island for sure. I wrote a good chunk of my paper on it, and about how the character I keep on, how they live in different seconds to identify someone. I think that could be a cool middle point. Gabe, did you want to expand your timeline?
No, exactly. You can go.
Or is
I was also thinking like the ugly laws and the freak shows, kind of like the transitioning of like when like they were starting to kind of address like how to deal with them in the society in a way that wasn't like just like automatically cutting them out, but was still very discriminatory. And before it was like pre-acceptance, but but it wasn't like not as bad as some of the things that came before it. So like if we talk about like you have like the ugly laws, the freak shows, and Ellis Island. That would be a good a good like middle sort of round.
Yeah.
So, I'm just looking at the time. So, I think for like, until our next class, maybe it's best to kind of continue this process and possibly like collaborate on a Google Doc and flesh it out.
Do you guys feel like, how do you, for the end? Would you want it to be like certain like do you want it to be like, oh, the ADA passed the thing and like look at how much things have improved? How do you feel about that? Because that sort of feels like where it's going, but I don't know if you think that that's
I
like
agree with that. I think it's good to everyone have that.
Okay.
Especially because we're starting so dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Yes.
We can talk about Mark.
So dark, we gotta end on a
We can talk about the Casey Martin case as well, because that's very inspiring and everything.
Okay, so like in the middle we probably have the middle, like Jerry Lewis,
JL.
and
Alan Keller definitely towards the end.
and we
also.
could probably organize the middle
Just
from
like
like
Braille.
more like a way to approach it that's like isolating, and then like closer to the end we could have like things like the hearing aid and things that like actually help people with back brace and stuff.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
closer, like I know we're gonna start to group a lot of stuff in this like middle-ish, endish area, but I think the start of that should be the leg brace, and I don't know if we're gonna include it, but if we do like a story,
The
I know
start should be the library of the middle.
like next-ish.
I think if we're gonna go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I know I keep going back to the story, but I also think it's worth mentioning the school or movement or school, I don't know what exactly it was, that tried to teach blind kids to read lips instead of
Or
Yeah.
blind kids.
blind, wait.
But
Yeah. Gal, you did,
I tried
right.
to-
Instead of.
This internal discussion in the deaf
Yeah.
community as
Yeah.
to whether we should be lip reading
Yeah.
or
I
sign
didn't
language,
actually
yeah.
get closer to the start
Oh.
of this chunk with the
Yeah.
leg brace, because those are both.
I think the leg brace should be earlier.
Yeah, I
because
agree.
one, FDR, for the main reasons, had a leg brace, and he was president at roughly the same time as what we're talking about at the beginning. I don't think we should wait so far to talk about the leg brace when he was such an important person in our country's past with the leg brace and
So-
with polio.
I think there are certain events
Whatever.
also that we have like objects that sort of have like a complicated like for example the Jerry Lewis telephones, they raised lots of money but it was kind of problematic. So I feel like also like we have other objects and stuff that sort of fit that, so maybe we can put that in like the very middle and be like, oh, what do we make of
I would
this?
it would be like
Yeah.
for either the end of the middle or beginning of the end, just because like it's kind of like at the end of that last chunk or the
With
beginning
the end of
next-
the beginning or the beginning of the middle?
No, the end of that
The end of the
chunk,
middle, the beginning of the end
or
of the middle.
like that area where because it kind of like chronologically it came after all of these things, and also it is like very different because the sole intention was or you guys like it was they never really wanted these things like these bad things to happen, so it was almost like
Yeah.
it was kind of turning like over like of like people like who like were being almost altruistic of like so of like trying to help the disabled community, but even though it didn't really happen, and then we can sort of go into like the resolution.
Yeah, also, I know we don't have Helen Keller as like an interview or a person or exhibit. Why are we, yeah, she was very important.
We have Brit.
Yeah, okay. We can sit down.
Alright, we
So you
pass
guys,
this over a
yeah,
few minutes.
you're gonna have to decide which stories you want to.
Why is it so important to have her like as a main focal point?
Yeah, no, Eliana and Gabe, come here. Yeah, Eliana,
Why can't mine be?
ah, shit.
Mr.
We need to do, this was great. It was amazing. This was amazing, like, well, you did a great job. No, you did a really good job. I know why she's such a main focal point, I'm wondering, so here's my question, Gabe, come here. Here's my question.
No, I said I want to talk to you about it.
I'm not driving you home.
This was phenomenal, and I wanted like you were humming in a way that I could be humming all year. Like this was this incredible thing.
Leora, did Anna leave us word?
Yeah.
Can you explain to me?
Oh yeah, well I just started getting into it so much I stopped taking notes.
It's just 2 and 3.
So one sec.
We
So
didn't
we
actually
made
do
your
anything
choice.
on the street.
Do you think that, so the two options are this, either that you guys take the momentum
I did, but I didn't
and
know
you guys
how to answer it, so I
flesh
didn't.
out
You can ask.
flesh out
Yeah, I think he answered that.
great. Then and you guys do that, and then what you do is
I'm
you
your
bring it to
attendance
the class
taker.
what you guys came up
Really
with.
all
So that's option one. Or option two is that we just continue this.
Make sure you're all set, you know what needs to happen.
I think if we flesh it out a little bit more and then like.
Well, I think enough that like there's not so much.
I the attendance.
I think we probably. Great.
Can you do that? Yeah.
I love
Can you tell?
What we do is we kind of donate.
Okay.
Basically that they're both like have insecurities in their fear.
I just had to
They're
think about
actually
it.
to like what was yours?
I did, well, I did, heritage
I did well.
came in, so
Yes.
Antigone,
And that's we should and so that really in many ways is what that wasn't Alec that
sit up to
had
Creon,
taken a bunch of saying that you know
Creon did.
How are you?
maybe even the best intentions self-reflection going on in here and that we're gonna save the world but at what cost?
Yeah.
Thanks, yeah, phenomenal. Okay, so you and Gabe got this?
Yeah.
Terrific.
Yeah, I'll bet.
And it says,
Yeah.
the demand that defective people be prevented from propagating equally defective offspring is a demand of leaders who are good and systematically executed
Right here.
the most humane action
Should
of
I-
mankind.
or should I assign it?
It as a class and undeserved suffering and consequently believe that the rising of. Does anybody want to do it as a class? Hitler. What's his name? The guy who wrote this book.
Yeah, I just want to get it over with.
Do you have
Madison Grant.
do you have the actual
Are we doing it as a class? I can
the original
I tried to figure out
right, so you can find like the original, even if it's just a copy of it.
You were here yesterday. I was on a hearing.
Love it.
It was written in German.
That's so good.
I'm Spanish.
Hey,
You're three.
great job.
Hey, who's that
So
brother?
good.
I just sent you an email.
I think it was on here.
I just
Right here. What?
I think, yeah, like, I mean, I emailed you, and you'll see what I said, like, basically, I think, a lot of, comments and concerns, a lot of comments and criticisms.
Yeah.
But I'm really happy with, like, this message I'm, like, talking about.
Me too.
Like, because it was so much to say, so little time.
That is how you know.
Yeah.
John, that
Can we
you
go
and
over
your
the
commenting was
library
so
and be
beautiful
treated
about realizing, you know, how much you didn't know and
It
how
was
far you
true,
come.
like, I
No, I know, it's beautiful,
yes.
and I'm so
It was
glad about that.
beautiful.
I'm so happy. So that was fun. I love you so much, friend. Come on, girls. Can't wait to meet you. Go to class, go to class, go to class, go to class. See you later.
So, Hillary, do you know what you need to do?
Yeah, we do. Thank you, Miss.